Hi, and welcome to More Human, More Resources, the HR podcast for entrepreneurs. I'm Vicki Brown, your host and CEO of Vidamaneo Enterprises. As a serial entrepreneur, I understand that having the right expert help has been critical to my success. That's why I'm dedicated to telling you, in plain language, what's going on in the world of HR that might impact your business and what you need to do about it, with real actionable tips to help you master that list of must-dos and grow your leadership muscle. First things first, the information contained in this podcast is provided for general purposes only and is not to be considered legal advice. Your decision to adopt or not adopt any practice or procedure mentioned in this podcast is solely yours, and we bear no responsibility for the outcome. We urge you to always consult legal counsel and other appropriate licensed professionals. And with that, let's get into the show. You're listening to Season 5, Episode 31. You know, when you're the CEO, it's easy to forget that you're not just the leader, you're also a manager. You're someone's boss, and that means employees will have opinions, they'll have reactions, and yes, sometimes they'll have complaints. And when the complaint is about you, well, that can feel personal, and it can feel personal fast. It might show up as a comment to your HR consultant, or through a team lead, or buried inside a feedback form. Sometimes it comes in an anonymous email. But however it shows up, one thing is clear. Someone on your team is saying something didn't sit right with how you showed up. So, what do you do with that? Well, let's start here. Don't panic, and don't power up. Your first instinct might be to shut down, or explain it away, or go find someone who will tell you the employee is just feeling sensitive. But the truth is, how you respond right now matters more than the complaint itself. This isn't about protecting your authority. It's about showing your leadership maturity. Before you take any action, get clear on what was actually said, because vague comments like, they feel uncomfortable, or they didn't like your tone, well, those aren't helpful on their own. You need specifics. Was it the way you delivered feedback? A decision they felt blindsided by? A comment they took the wrong way? Don't jump into defense mode. You're not here to argue your side. You're here to understand what happened, or at least how it was experienced. Next, zoom out. Look at the context. Did this concern come from a hard conversation or a tough business decision? Is this a high-performing team member or someone who's already struggling? Have you heard anything similar from other team members, either directly or secondhand? Now, I'm not saying that every complaint comes from a toxic place. Some come from confusion or fear or a real breakdown in communication. And if multiple people are saying the same thing in different ways, well, that's not noise. That's a pattern. Stay curious. Even if you completely disagree with the feedback, ask yourself, why might they have seen it that way? You don't have to agree to listen, and you don't have to change your decision to understand how it landed. Sometimes complaints uncover real gaps in communication, expectations, even values. And sometimes they reflect a deeper issue that needs your attention. But you won't find that out if you shut the door too early. You know, it's also worth checking in with yourself. Without spiraling or beating yourself up, ask, did I handle that conversation the way I intended to? Was I clear? Did I let stress, frustration, or time pressure affect how I came across? You're juggling a lot. As the CEO, you've got a full view of the business, and that often means you're moving faster than your team is. But leadership doesn't just mean driving the business forward. It also means being honest with yourself when your style or delivery might need adjusting. Then ask yourself the big question. Is this a one-time concern? Or is there a real leadership pattern here? You see, some complaints are reactions to hard, necessary decisions. Others are signs of ongoing friction. If people are telling you that you're dismissive, unclear, or reactive, that's not drama. That's data. Patterns call for real action. One-offs call for thoughtful reflection. Now, depending on the situation, it might be helpful to have a direct conversation with the employee. If you do, be calm and grounded. You can say something simple like, I heard you had a concern about how I handled that meeting. I'd like to hear more about it. Now, you don't need to apologize for making hard calls. You don't need to explain every detail, but you do need to listen. And if something you said or didn't land well, take a moment to clarify it or own it if necessary. You see, the higher up you are, the more important it is that you show your team how to handle conflict, how to handle tension and accountability, because this is leadership in action. Also, don't skip the documentation. Even if the concern was raised informally, write down what happened. Note what was said, what actions you took, and what was discussed. This isn't about protecting yourself from your team. It's about protecting the business. If you work with an HR consultant, loop them in early. That's especially important if the issue touches on things like harassment, discrimination, or workplace culture concerns. In fact, if it's regarding harassment or discrimination allegations, you may have a formal investigation on your hands. So be sure to circle around with a professional right away. And remember, a solid documentation trail can save you a lot of heartache later on. Then, once things are addressed, don't let it sit in the dark. Use the moment to reinforce the kind of culture you're building. This doesn't mean broadcasting what happened, but you can say to your leadership team or even your full staff that you're committed to respectful dialogue in both directions. Let people know that feedback is welcome, even when it's hard. And yes, that includes feedback about you. No one's above accountability, not even the CEO. And when your team sees you model that, it sets the tone for everything else. Here's the bottom line. CEOs get complained about. It just comes with the territory. But what do you do with that moment? That's what separates someone who just owns a business from someone who actually leads one. You don't need to agree with the complaint to take it seriously. You don't need to change course to show that you care. But how you handle it, with clarity, steadiness, and humility, will shape how safe, strong, and smart your company feels to work in. And that's what real leadership looks like. If you found this information helpful, please leave a review and tell a friend. Thanks for spending the time. Until next week, same time, same place.